I think we're going, aren't we? Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jo Coles. I'm the Deputy Mayor for York and North Yorkshire for Police, Fire and Crime. And this is an online public meeting which will focus this afternoon on the Fire and Rescue Service. We're going to have an update on performance over the first quarter of the financial year, then a presentation around prevention and protection, and then some a spotlight question which will focus on some findings from the Grenfell Inquiry report, which was published a few weeks ago, an update on NYFRS. We've then got public questions, and we are aiming to conclude the meeting by 4:15. If I could just start by just asking colleagues who are on the call just to introduce yourself so that people who may be watching either live or recording know who is on the call. I'll just go round my screen if that's okay. So I've got, I'll do the people who've got cameras on, because I assume those are people who are going to be participating in the meeting. Damien, could I come to you first?
You can. Good afternoon, Deputy Mayor. I'm Damien Henderson. I'm Director for Service Improvement and Assurance, and I will be presenting the update on service delivery performance and NYFRS today.
Brilliant, thank you. Thomas or Tom?
Yeah, either of us fine, thank you. Yeah, afternoon everyone. Tom Hurst, Director of Community Risk and Resilience.
Great. Matt, I was going to say you haven't got your camera on, but would you like to just introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I would. My name's Matt Walker. I'm Deputy Chief Fire Officer of North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, and currently having a slight issue with my camera. So I'm here and I'm just trying to work in the background to get it working. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Amanda, you're the next on my screen.
Good afternoon. I'm Amanda Wilkinson, the Director of Service Design and Delivery for North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue.
Great, thank you. I'll finish with the fire officers and then I'll just come to the other people on the call. Adam?
Good afternoon, Deputy Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Adam Farrow. I'm the Station Manager for Prevention.
Thank you, Adam, and welcome. JD?
Jonathan Dyson, Chief Fire Officer.
Thank you. And John?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's John Danson. I'm currently a Group Manager in Response, but today I'm going to be presenting on some of the work I've carried out for protection over the last 4 years.
Great, thank you, John. Looking forward to that. And Tamara, you're on the call.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tamara Stevens, and I'm the Director of Delivery and Assurance at the Office of Police, Fire, Crime and Commissioning.
Thank you. And just so that people are aware, the other people on the call, Rebecca Smith, Simon Jones and Amanda Bowers, are all in the comms and public engagement team. For this one, slide by slide, if that's okay, and I'll just jump in if I've got questions. If you can just pause at the end of the slide, and if anyone else has things they want to add or clarify, then if you could just use your hand indicator, that would be great.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can you see the presentation on screen?
I can, thank you.
Thank you. So this is service delivery performance, as you've suggested, for the first quarter of this financial year. And starting with prevention, we've undertaken 1,049 home fire safety visits in this reporting period. That is slightly lower than the same period last year, but does equate to 55 days of activity. One of the most important parts within this, though, is our increased focus. So we have done 84 very high home fire safety visits and 551 high risk home fire safety visits. This is a significant increase on the previous year. Just as comparison, we've actually done over 100 more high and very high home fire safety visits in the first quarter than we did in the entire year last year. So far more focused on getting to those members of our communities that are most vulnerable. 116 low and very low received online advice. These would have previously received a visit from North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, but that's not the case now, as we do the risk assessment online to do that. So that could be where that slight decrease of the actual outputs have come from. 73 of our referrals, which are provided by our partners, declined our visits, and 20 of the referrals provided by our partners were unable to be contacted through multiple attempts by the Fire and Rescue Service. And what we do when that occurs, we pass those referrals back to the referring partners, because sometimes that is unavoidable. The person may have been admitted to hospital or something like that. So it's not dismissed, it's passed back to those referring partners. So the notable improvements in our performance is that much more targeted approach, identifying those most vulnerable in the communities. We now have a fully staffed prevention team who are undertaking role-specific training. One of the key areas which was identified in our previous NYFRS report was that we needed to improve quality assurance to ensure that we were giving a consistent service to members of the public, and also to have an evaluation process. That is now in place. Our post-incident engagement policy is now in place. So that is for any time that there's an incident, irrespective of what that incident may be, crews identify where prevention activities will reduce risk in those properties. And our focus address lists are now in trial across the service. This will allow us to target our work at those most vulnerable in areas where response times may be unavoidably longer. And this is certainly something that NYFRS also look at, because referrals are really positive into the service, but they don't take account of the geography where those referrals are coming in from. So it's important that we do a blend of referrals from partners and our own generated risk information. I will pause there, Deputy Mayor, and see if there's any questions.
Just a couple. One was just if you could give us an example of the kind of focus that, the kind of places that are getting that particular focus. So an example of something that might be considered very high risk or high risk, just so that we've got a bit of context to understand those kinds of visits. That would be really helpful.
Certainly. So I will try, but I do know that we've obviously got Adam and Tom that have worked in this area much longer than me. So I will attempt to answer that. And if there's anything I miss, I'm sure they will come in. But certainly when we identify those from referring partners, those high and very high, that cuts across a lot of areas with regards to the individual that's in that property, also any of those habits and living habits that they may have, so smoking within the property.
So would someone who's a smoker, sorry to cut you off, but if someone is a smoker and smokes inside, would that automatically put them in a high or a very high category?
Not necessarily, but I will open that up to Tom and Adam, who will know that far better than me, the categories.
Yeah, I can happily pick that one up. Yeah, so our referral pathway that we use to make sure the risk stratification, it judges it around three things based on the person-centred framework. It talks about the person themselves, the property and their behaviours. So, for example, something like smoking within the home, that would naturally score within that quite highly, which would then put them through for a referral. They're not often alone with that, so then as that then goes through the form, there'll be other things that then keep increasing that to then decide at what level of risk that judges that upon.
Brilliant, that's really helpful. And just for the people who would now be getting online advice, just if you could clarify what the monitoring process is for that, just to ensure that there's a kind of a safety valve, if you like, for making sure that we're not missing people by changing the approach and targeting it.
Tom, do you want to cover that one again? Sorry to come from you, but I know you know far more about that.
I can certainly start that, and then maybe Adam can finish it off on the actual operational usage of that. But once again, by using the Safe Links app, which is like a national referring app for self-referral and partnership referral, through that all the way through, it's measuring their response when we put in the details, as I spoke about, but those three, the person, the property and the behaviours. If there is any heightened risk, they will naturally get that physical visit from ourselves, and that's how we prioritise our resources around the people who need it the most. However, we fully understand that everyone, should have the right to have that home fire safety advice. So for the people who do sit within the what is deemed or categorised as a low risk, they get to start with, they get the online guide, and that takes them through a room by room experience. How we can reduce it within the home, and then it talks about different practices, and at the end of it, it fills out a report. The operational element of it I will pass on to Adam, and I hope I'm not putting him right on the spot there, but I know he has used the tool more than myself. So Adam, you'll be able to finish off on the operational aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just add as well the risk stratification of the online referral tool. It's come from many different working groups right across nationally, the fire and rescue service sector, to decide on what we perceive to be a risk, or what potentially could be a risk. The bar for low is incredibly low. So the moment you start to add any sort of risk into that online referral pathway, you start to tip into the medium, and then the gaps between medium and high and very high are a little bit bigger to take into consideration the risk that might be, really very high, or something that we'd consider to be high. The action plan that Tom was mentioning about, so room by room action plan, personalised centred advice, is then given and emailed back to the person completing that online form. And then there is also signposting advice, so you can get reminders for smoke alarm, you checking your smoke alarm once a month. So there's further advice and signposting beyond that as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And can I just clarify, if someone can't do something online, does that automatically put them in a queue for an in-person visit? How does that work if they can't do something online?
I'm quite happy to answer that one as well, if that's okay. So yeah, we offer it on the phone as well. We've got a team of people that have been trained in North Yorkshire that control our phone lines, and also out of hours. So if there is someone that can't use the online facilities, as we know it's not available to everyone in all corners of our county, the advice is exactly the same, but it's done via the phone. And if there was any sort of other issues, that could be passed into the prevention department to look into further.
Brilliant, thank you. And just, we can move on, Damien, but can I just ask that you don't read everything on the slides? Can you just pull out some highlights? Otherwise, we're never going to get through it all.
Certainly. Thank you, Deputy
Oh, sorry,
Mayor.
Tom wanted to come in. Sorry.
Yeah, apologies. I think it'd be remiss not to have a little bit of a shameless plug around our app that we have available as well. So a lot of our referring partners now, such as Yorkshire Ambulance Service, North Yorkshire Police, housing associations, they've got access to our app on their, well, it's a Safe Links app on their electronic devices as well, to make it even more simplified on the other side of it. So for the people who can't use the online, we have got the phone lines available to them, but equally for people who may use it more often, we have got an app available now to help support and speed up the process for them.
Brilliant. All right,
Thank you,
Damien.
Tom. Yeah, so I've moved the slide on. So as we've discussed there, home fire safety visits are an integral part of prevention activity, but in line with our community risk profile, we also cover other areas of risk, which include fire, road and water, and you can see some of the engagements that have been undertaken there by the prevention team. So lots of activity. As you've suggested, I won't go through each of those, but you can see that we do an incredible amount of work with youth engagement. We've had 16 deployments of the fire bike, and we also look at water safety as part of prevention as well. And what we have also done is all of the new recruits that have come into the organisation, either transferring into the whole time from our on-call staff, or the new recruits that we've had into the fire and rescue service. They've all had an input on prevention from the prevention team. So lots of activity outside of home fire safety visits, but home fire safety visits do have that national spotlight on them, so lots of work in there as well. I will pause there again.
Brilliant. Yeah, I've got one question around the fire standards chart in the bottom right hand corner. Just if you could let me know what the 2 areas of non-compliance were in that safeguarding chart.
Certainly, Deputy Mayor, you are asking me all the questions that Tom can answer. He's the senior responsible owner for that. So apologies, Tom. I'll hand back over to you.
Yeah, no problems at all. Yep, predominantly this is around the safer recruitment aspect of it. So
safer recruitment.
A big one around that, but the main one.
Oh, sorry, you cut out.
Of all members of our staff. Sorry.
Could you just start that again because you cut out?
Yeah, certainly. It's a safer recruitment aspect of it. So within that, in fact, it's ourselves that are hosting the northern region of that. So we're waiting on some NFCC train the trainer around safer recruitment. From that, we'll be able to put things in place, making like more of putting a mark across all our recruitment that we are a safer recruiting organisation. It's an aspect that unfortunately we've not been able to get partial or full compliance due to waiting on some national packages coming out.
Great. Back to you, Damien.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next slide is with regards to protection. We've seen a slight increase in performance over the previous year, or increase in outputs. 1,324 jobs completed already in the reporting period, which equates to 94 days of activity. Some of that activity is around fire safety audits and our risk-based inspection programme that you can see there. Other elements of that work is guidance, advice, which is the business engagement and exchanging information with building owners. We also do lots of work with regards building regulations, licensing, and responding to those consultations in a timely manner. But as you can see, lots of activity within our protection teams, and it's slightly increased from the same period last year.
Great. And can you just clarify, I assume it's something to do with fire safety or fire alarms, what AFAS and UWFS means at the bottom of that chart?
Sorry. Yes, so that is unwanted fire signals, and AFAs are automated fire alarms. Apologies. There is a glossary now at the end of the slides, but apologies, brilliant. That's taken out of the way in which we capture it.
That's great. And just so that people are aware, these slides are available to people online, so if they want to print them out or refer to the glossary at the end, they can do so, which is also why we don't need to read everything on every slide, because they are available to people anyway. That's great. No, that was all I needed to clarify on that one.
Thank you. The next slide is with regards to the incidents that we've been to from April, May, June, and as you can see from this, it is a very similar number to the incidents that we attended last year. This year we're at 1,855 compared to 1,849 last year. There has been a slight increase in false alarm incidents and a decrease in fire incidents and special services. The information put on the bottom of the slide, 482 of the 807 false alarm incidents attended between 6 in the evening and 8 in the morning. That has been put in there because we are looking to reduce the number of false alarms that we go to, and there was a presentation previously delivered by Tom on the 5-step process to how we're trying to reduce those unwanted false alarms, but certainly over the nighttime period, if it is a sleeping risk, we will always attend to any false alarms. So that's why that figure has been entered in the bottom of the slide.
And can I just ask if, just in terms of public information, if someone's fire alarm does go off and they're aware that it's a false alarm, what should they be doing to kind of, you know, save your resources and ensure that you kind of know that it's a false alarm? What's the best thing for people to do?
Certainly. So with regards to false alarms in our built environment, so commercial properties, the protection team work with those on a regular basis. Most of those places do have fire wardens. So if they do find that it is a false alarm and they're aware of that, they can call into North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service advising us that it is a false alarm. On occasions, we will still proceed to check just to make sure everything is okay. But once they have let us know about that, we would. But what our control room staff also do now, when we do get that false alarm, at times they will call challenge just to make sure in the hours of the daytime, if it's not a sleeping risk, we will call challenge just to make sure that all those routine checks have been done before we issue an appliance to attend that incident. If it is at home, you can do that, but as I've said, at times we will still send an appliance just to make sure that everything is okay within a dwelling.
And if someone was trying to call the fire and rescue service in that kind of scenario, should they be calling 999, or is there another number that they should be calling?
There is another number that can get through to our control. Deputy Mayor, I am sure someone on the call, while I've got the slides up, will find that number so we can inform members of the public of that.
Brilliant. That would be great, just because you know, ultimately, if you're trying to reduce the numbers, let's make sure the public know how to let you know. Brilliant. I think from my point of view, we can move on.
Thank you. This slide is with regards to fire engine availability. So within the previous year, our average availability was 76%. Within the first quarter of 24-25, we saw a reduction of that, and our overall average fire engine availability was 70%. This is an area of work that we were aware of. We are a predominantly on-call fire and rescue service, and at times it is a challenge to maintain all of the appliances that we do have within North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue. The graph that you see underneath, that is from NYFRS's digital analysis pack, and that shows our performance against the other services across England Fire and Rescue. As you can see, when you look to the far left-hand side, Greater Manchester, Merseyside, Tyne and Wear, West Midlands, London, they have got very low, if no numbers of on-call staff, so their availability is far higher. We have seen the reduction. As a service, we've invested in a dedicated station manager who now oversees all activity within on-call. We did have to cancel an on-call Safe to Ride course early on in the year, but we now have 4 courses in place. They're all fully subscribed to. We've just finished a Safe to Ride course, and we've got 14 new on-call firefighters. So certainly across North Yorkshire, you know, the commitment that is shown from our on-call staff is amazing, and we do seem to be getting the numbers through, and certainly we're getting those numbers of applications into the service, albeit at some of our locations it is a real challenge to get people to commit to being on-call firefighters, but it's something we're really working on, and the on-call station manager is working with members of each of the on-call communities as well as employers to try and attract people into North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service.
Brilliant, yeah, and certainly I feel like there's a real opportunity from the new combined authority in terms of, you know, ensuring that we've got that wider economic buy-in from companies and businesses, particularly to support people who want to be on-call firefighters to be able to do that. JD, did you want to come in?
No, thank you. Just in context of the on-call course that we cancelled there. So we provide around 4 courses per year to try and give people the opportunity and work around the individuals and their employers. Sometimes people will opt for a course, and because of personal or professional circumstances, they will move it to another course. But of course, we get to a level where it isn't efficient to run the course, but the same number of people are then applied across the others. So that's just how we have to resource to the risk then around you know, availability of individuals and their employers, who of course are good enough to work with us to provide their staff. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. I just had a couple of questions. One was around the overall average fire engine availability, because it's decreased by 6% since this time last year. I assume those are averages for that first quarter average, I guess, could change during the course of a full year, because that's comparing a quarter with a year, isn't it? But I just wondered, given that you've got 14 new on-call firefighters potentially coming on stream, should I be expecting that number to reverse, as in the percentage availability to go up? Is that an expectation I should have around that recruitment?
Certainly with the number of courses that we've now got subscribed, Deputy Mayor, we are very hopeful that we will start to see an improvement in that availability figure. We are doing lots of work. We've actually overlaid information across all our on-call stations to understand the demographic of individuals that live in those areas and be able to target sort of our recruitment a lot more sophisticatedly. So we are very hopeful when those numbers come through, we will have improved availability. Also, part of this is we have got a number of our on-call staff currently in temporary roles for whole time, and as I'm sure you're aware, we've recently had 34 new members into our whole time staff, which will mean that some of those on-call staff we can replace back into the on-call, and that will also increase the availability of our on-call fire engines. Yeah. Matt, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I know you're fully aware of this, but I think it's an opportunity for us just to, you know, place on record our thanks to those local heroes that do perform the role of on-call firefighters. I know you're fully aware of that and you're fully supportive of it. I think it's really important for the public to understand, you know, the commitment and the professionalism of on-call firefighters. They have primary employment, so they go to work every day. They've got families, they've got social lives, but they choose to commit to providing a service to their local communities. And I think every opportunity to try and remind everybody of their importance, not only to the local communities, but to the wider area of North Yorkshire and York.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I absolutely echo that. And very keen to look at how we do more to ensure that they're being well supported, both within, you know, within the service, but also more widely in terms of proper public acknowledgement or acknowledgement from their employers about the service that they're providing. I just had one other question about the on-call availability, which I realised because of the nature of on-call firefighting is a lower percentage than the overall percentage. I just wondered if there was anything people could add about that and how it fits within the wider picture, just in terms of public reassurance around if they know that their area has an on-call fire station, just what they should be aware of in terms of that. Doesn't mean that it's only available 68% of the time, because I know that you're looking at risk all the time, but I just wondered if someone had anything they could add on that. JD, did you want to come in, Damien?
Certainly, Deputy Mayor, I'll come in with that. So it's 68% availability. We have got a number of fire engines across the whole of North Yorkshire and the City of York, and certainly what we do on a daily and weekly basis is make sure that those available appliances are distributed across the whole service area to best provide cover to all our communities across North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service. As the Deputy Chief suggested there, a number of our on-call staff have primary roles, primary employment, and at times those appliances do for a short period go off the run, but certainly as a service we've invested in a dynamic cover tool to ensure that we can best move the resources around North Yorkshire and the City of York to provide cover in those areas if an appliance for any reason is unavailable. We're actually trying to improve the way that we collect data on this, because currently the availability is calculated per hour, and we're looking to use a new system. So actually we probably under-reporting at the moment, because if an appliance is off the run for 5 minutes, the way in which that's recorded is shows off that it was out for that hour. We're actually using another system in a couple of months, which will do it minute by minute. So hopefully Brilliant. That will give a better representation. But certainly, as I've said with the on-call station manager, we're putting a lot of time and effort into ensuring that we increase the availability of those appliances. And then we are moving those appliances across the service area to ensure that we're covering that risk wherever possible.
Great, that's really helpful. Thank you. Did anyone else need to come in on that? JD, did you want to come in?
Well, just Damien's wonderfully articulated all the points there. I think whenever we need to be mindful of, but whenever we show this data into a public domain, it's always a part, and rightly, as you've addressed there, a point of public assurance. The thing, as Damien has stated there, we move our appliances around on a continual basis to make sure that we are covering risk across the county, because we can't be equitable to everybody, but we try to be proportionate at all times. So we will always make sure that the areas of highest risk will always have the fire cover that's required, but we acknowledge that people in our remote rural areas also need fire cover. So we move appliances around into those areas as well to make sure we're providing that widespread geographical cover. So as an assurance to members of the public, wherever the statistics are, there is always fire cover available. If they dial 999, they will always receive a call. And that's the primary thing. The charts are quite complex data, and not all services report in the same way, which can skew what we've got there. So ultimately, it's that point of assurance. When anybody dials 999, they will get a response, a competent assurance of where we are, and we'll be there as quick as we can in that geographic location. Thank you.
And I should add, before we just move on, Damien, is that I went to the fire control room a couple of weeks ago and kind of saw all of that in action, and they're not on the call, but just to pay tribute to the people in the control room for the work that they do, both managing the calls that are coming in, but also ensuring that firefighters who are moving around the region are also kind of, tracked and monitored, so that we know where we've got cover and where we haven't, in terms of moving firefighters as well as deploying vehicles when they're needed. So just a kind of thank you to them for everything that they're doing, because I know that that is an incredibly difficult job that they're doing, kind of juggling those logistics all the time. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. We can move on, Damien, if that's okay.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Certainly. The next slide is with regards to response times. So Home Office statistics referenced our overall response time last year as 12 minutes 37. Improving our response time across all incidents, as you can see there, is a priority for the service, because we acknowledge with those movements of resources, as we've said there, the actual number of appliances and appliance availability can sometimes present an inaccurate picture, because we've got 2 pumps at one station, but at times having that distribution of the appliances is really, really important. One of the things that it does say on here, and I do always cover this because it is a huge challenge for us in North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, is our huge geography. 3,200 and something square miles, which is significantly bigger than most predominantly rural fire and rescue services. So the 1237, we're looking to improve that wherever possible. The fastest service on the same data Home Office provided was at 221 square miles. So we're 17 times bigger than them, but their response time, we're within 6 minutes of that. Just going through the figures there, we've got the overall response time to all incidents. That is now showing at 11 minutes 58 for the first quarter. So an improvement of 39 seconds on what was reported by Home Office previously. And those lower figures, the overall call time, primary and dwelling fire that you can see there, that is the call handling timing control. So as you've suggested there, control do an amazing amount of work. They gather all the information. They're the first point of contact in any emergency situation for the members of the public. And it is just them gathering the information that's needed to pass on to our crews to respond there. We are looking to improve and maintain these response times, and we will be consulting with the public shortly about what is an appropriate response time for us. But the 3 sections there are those that we would be looking at. It's that overall incident response time, and probably the other one, which would be our response time to dwelling fires, and that is an average response time, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, so I just had, I'm just trying to understand the difference between the numbers, which I think is that you just said it's the length of the call with the control room.
Yes.
But does that mean the difference between those numbers is effectively the travel time, or would the travel time already have started potentially?
Yes, certainly. So the bottom figure, which is the time it takes for the call to come in, for control to gather the information and pass that to crews on station. As you'll see there, Deputy Mayor, the quickest of those is dwelling fires. That's simply because it's at an addressable location. They can identify that where that location is immediately and start one of our resources going out to that incident. Primary fires, as you can see, is slightly higher. That's due to the fact that might be an outdoor fire, which could be crops, woodland, which is harder to locate, so control need to ask further questions, or it could be a car fire that's sort of being left somewhere remotely. But you're quite right there, the difference between the 136 and the 1018 for dwelling fires, that will be then the travel time for our crews to get there. And obviously dependent where the fire is, when you're trying to cover 3,200 and something square miles, those travel times at times are unavoidably longer than we see in other services.
Yeah, although I have to say, as someone who travels around the region, there's not many places that you can get in 10 minutes I mean, I appreciate you've got your lights on. People do get out of the way, quite rightly, but that is still, certainly for dwelling fires, feels like that's quite a reassuring number in terms of the response time. And presumably the trends in terms of over time between, that's Q1, but how we would presumably monitor the trends in those response times between quarters and then across kind of years, just to ensure that we kind of, I'm sure JD is going to jump in and reassure me, but that we're on top of those kind of times overall, and certainly it's useful to see it in the context of the call followed by the response time.
Certainly, and we are gathering that information constantly, Deputy Mayor, and we are, like I say, I think this should be one of our priority areas because, as we've said, we're moving our resources around. We do appreciate what we are looking to sort of introduce is the average response time, because we know in some of our more remote rural areas, it probably will take us slightly longer than the average time. But what we want to ensure is that we're looking across the whole range of incidents that we've got. Some services report that they will meet a response time 80% of the time. We think that's potentially misleading to the public, because where you are slower, you're just dismissing that information, and that's our option would be we want to include all incidents, which gives a really clear and transparent and open response standard that the public can hold us to, that we're trying to maintain and improve that.
Great. JD, do you want to jump in, or has Damien covered it?
No, there is a point of assurance, I think, to both yourself and the public. The main point is response times are the emotive part of services. This is when someone needs help and it's our time to get there. And I know, we're unfortunately, having been in these situations, it seems like an eternity of that travel time till the appliance gets there. We get that. And that isn't lost on anybody on this call or anybody in this service. We're all doing everything we can. There are ways that we've already demonstrated we're improving, and I'm looking at today's statistics and they are slightly lower than those ones there. So we are constantly improving. We've improved our data. Despite our financial situation, we're making massive investment into this area so that it's more data and intelligent led. So ultimately, the public can take assurance that we are doing everything on a daily basis to make sure we respond as fast as we can with the appropriate resources wherever you are in the county. And we'll continue to do that.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's great. Damien, we can move on.
Thank you. So I won't cover everything in this slide. I'm sure you'll be happy to know, Deputy Mayor, there's lots of information there, and as you've said, it is available there for the public. But this is about our risk information. So we capture risk information on the built environment across the City of York and North Yorkshire. We did identify that we did have some of those risks out of date. Tom, as Director for Community Risk and Resilience, has set up a task and finish group to ensure that all of that risk is updated prior to a deadline in November, and that work is progressing very, very well. With regards to organisational learning, this is an important area because, as you're aware, we will be getting re-inspected again, the third round of inspections from NYFRS from January. The one thing that the inspection teams don't do is come out and see how we respond to incidents, but they look at how well trained we are and how we learn from every incident that we go to. And I just want to pull out one of the stats there, which is the debrief return forms. We get 96% return rate for debriefs. I potentially think that is a notable practice that we can give to NYFRS, because I've seen a lot of fire and rescue services, and 96% of all incidents having some form of debrief returned through to the service is really, really outstanding.
Brilliant. Well, that's good to know. I didn't have any questions on this slide, so I'm happy for you to. Oh, Matt would like to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think just very quickly in terms of context, this is a slight organisational shift, because for us to be a learning organisation, which we are now, it takes a degree of bravery and vulnerability to actually look at ourselves to make sure that we can improve. And there isn't a more stark reminder than, Grenfell Phase 2. As an example of making sure that we do understand how to learn as an organisation. So I think it's incumbent upon us all to have that mindset, and we talk a lot within service about the growth mindset. And I think this is a great example of doing that now. So people feel able and confident to actually identify areas in the service that we can get better at. And that encompasses everything that we're trying to do as North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service.
Great. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Matt. Damien, next slide.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So this slide is with regards to, as you've seen, we're capturing lots of data currently. So the data we capture, we're making sure that that is aligned to data that is captured at a national level. So all the data we capture aligns to that of Home Office or NYFRS. But a couple of the areas that we have introduced this year is about that qualitative information, not just the quantitative. So performance audits we have introduced, so that is where the assurance team go out to each of our station locations. They look across all areas of business, from routine checks on appliances and safety critical pieces of equipment to the way in which we exercise and drill on stations. So we've introduced that. We're progressing that each of the stations will have had a performance audit within the 2-year period. One of the other areas that we've also introduced is with regards to our incident and training exercise monitoring. What this is we have operational staff, station managers, group managers. If they turn out to an incident, and at the incident there is no need for them to take charge of that incident, they will do an incident monitoring form, feedback all that information on performance of those incident commanders. This is really important for a fire and rescue service, because as we've sort of suggested, fire calls are coming down, and it's really important we take every opportunity to learn and improve when we do actually go out to incidents. So 2 big areas there, which are also looking at the quality of what we do, not just those output numbers.
No, absolutely, and it's really reassuring to know that kind of monitoring and learning is taking place, and I think that is extremely reassuring, and yeah, really good to know. Thank you.
That was the final slide, Deputy Mayor, so I've just pushed it through to the glossary so the public can see that, and I will stop sharing my slides now.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Damien. That finishes. That's the first main item on the agenda. We're now going to move on. We've got 2 presentations on prevention, early intervention and safeguarding, and one on protection. I think we're doing prevention, early intervention and safeguarding first. Is that right? And it's Tom and Adam, I think, presenting.
Yep, that is correct. It is predominantly going to be Adam doing that with, I can't claim any glory for this, unfortunately. I'm here to support if any questions are required, but it is predominantly Adam who's going to be doing the presentation today in relation to prevention and early intervention.
Yeah, that's great. And, this feels like it's a very important strategic intention of the service around this part of this area of work. And I know there's been some real investment in this side of things by the service. So I'm looking forward to it. And I will, I'll let you know if you wanted to go through all the slides. And again, don't assume that people haven't read them, so you can just summarize what's on the slides, and then I haven't got tons of questions, so if you wanted to save the questions part until the end of the presentation, and I'll just jump in at the end of that presentation before we move on to the next one.
Certainly. So can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So, yeah, welcome. This is the prevention, early intervention and safeguarding part of today's online public meeting. I'm Adam, I'm joined by Tom. Vicky, who has assisted with this and co-designed this presentation, not here today, but she is named on the front. So, during this presentation, we're going to go through our prevention strategy, the structure of our team and how the Fire and Rescue Service operates for prevention, not just our team, but the whole service, and go through some of our key achievements and some of the challenges that we still face. So first of all, our strategy. So why have we got it? We've got to create a strategy so that we know exactly what our focus is across North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, who we need to be sort of targeting, who is most at risk of fire, water, road, any of the key areas that we will try and prevent harm or worse for the public. Our strategy says how we're going to deliver it, so it's not just a document that says what we want to achieve. It does mention how we're going to deliver it. It crucially monitors and measures our understanding of what does good look like. So how will we know if we've met this strategy and what our outcomes and aims and objectives are for the public? And also, which is a good bit, is understanding what difference it makes for the public, but for ourselves as well, keeps us motivated and it keeps us sort of following that strategy through to where it needs to be. So just want to talk a little bit about where it fits in. So for the public and for everyone who don't know, we do have a community risk profile. So this is the document on the left of the screen. This is basically tells us what our risk is, where the risk is and who's most at risk. We've got our Fire and Rescue Service plan, which is our sort of commitment to the public and what matters to the public. We've got our risk and resource model, which looks at what was the risk and how we actually going to resource and make sure that we align to meet that risk. We've got our core code of ethics, which is intrinsic core into how we perform as a fire and rescue service, but also as a fire sector. The slightly smaller picture there is our strategic objectives, which is what we aim to achieve as a fire and rescue service. But breaking that down into what prevention is about is our prevention strategy. And ultimately, that is what we're talking about in this presentation. And it's how we keep people safe and the impact we need to make. So the strategy is available on our website, I believe, but it does have key objectives. So we want to make sure that we understand the data and we use that data to find where the risk is and resource that correctly. We want to understand what matters most to the public using the Fire and Rescue Service plan. So we've got 4 key objectives for that. These are preventing people from being seriously hurt or killed due to a fire in their home, preventing people from being seriously hurt or killed on our roads, in our waters, or to reduce the impact of large-scale environmental events, such as wildfires, but it could also be wide-scale flooding. We do also have objectives around safeguarding and youth engagement and intervention. So each part of our strategy will highlight where the risk is, what's most at risk. We'll also bring out a plan of action. So it highlights the positive difference that we want to make to the public and how we are actually going to do that. And it mentions the different roles in prevention. So although I manage a prevention team, specialised staff and individuals that cover all the corners of the county, it's not just the prevention team that deliver this. Whole-time staff, whether they are day crewed or on shift station, on call or volunteer, all have an element to play in delivering prevention, and there's incredibly passionate and specialised, skilled people in our response stations and staff that deliver really crucial piece of our prevention work, such as home fire safety visits or school education. We have a specialised section for safeguarding, which not just fits into the safeguarding element of the service, but safeguarding reaches every department and everyone that has an element of working with the public or with other professionals. So safeguarding is really intrinsic to how we operate as a fire and rescue service. Looking at our structure, I just want to mention a few bits about our structure and the context of our team. So we've set out a few objectives for our structure, and I will go into how our structure has changed in the prevention team over predominantly the last 12 months. The 6 areas of focus really are improving our use of data. So I have talked about this, and Damien's mentioned it in previous slides, but we now use data much more to emphasise where we want to work. We're using data to specifically target areas that we know are not just more likely to have a fire, but where the consequence of fire would be more. So those that are more rural, that take longer for our fire and rescue service resources to attend. We want to enable the effective delivery of our strategy through having more people with the right skills and the right training, delivering the right interventions, and upskilling the whole fire and rescue service staff as a whole. We want to improve our resilience, capacity and physical emotional safety of our people. Predominantly in the prevention team, we have a lot of staff that work in isolated rural communities, often by themselves, lone working and in quite challenging situations. And often when we think about emotional safety and sort of trauma from the fire and rescue service, we think of the response side, which is quite rightly so that we do think of that side. But our prevention team that go into vulnerable people's homes, they are still affected by some of the emotional stress and trauma that they will be working with and supporting people through. We want to increase the capacity and effectively manage our safeguarding cases. So this leads into the next point of making sure our safeguarding manager has the capacity to not just manage all the safeguarding cases themselves as it has previously been, but allow our team to relieve her of some of that work so that she can go on to work and provide more support and structure strategic change and ensure we've got legislative compliance with new pieces of legislation coming out. And we also, lastly, want to provide a layer of seniority and capacity within the delivery of training throughout the whole service. So that means that we've got people with the right level of management skills that can ensure that our work that we say we're going to do is delivered effectively, efficiently and quality assured right across the service. Just a little bit of context around the team. I think Damien's already mentioned it. We are a massive county, over 3,200 square miles. With regards to road safety, we've got the largest road network with over 6,000 miles of road. Up until around June this year, we operated as with a reduction of 40% in our community safety officers and 50% reduction in public safety officers. These are our frontline staff that are going out and delivering interventions. This was largely because we've gone through a period of consultation and growth, which meant that we were unable to sort of recruit for a period of time whilst we rewrote and reviewed job descriptions, advertised, interviewed and got the right people in. It also meant that for a large period of time, we were operating with one function head, one station manager, a safeguarding manager and intermittently 2 watch managers. These operational members of staff also have abstractions from work whilst they carry out operational duties, training and continual professional development. We also do the hosting work required for the partnership, the road safety partnership for the road safety coordinator, who's been a real integral part of our road safety delivery over the last year. And also we host the public safety officers as part of the public safety service that is still carrying out in Craven. And during this time as well, we have delivered on really large-scale projects such as the disclosure and barring service requirements, which came in under new legislation last year. So just on screen now is our previous structure. This structure, it is colour coordinated in the fact that the red posts were vacant posts. These are the ones that we were operating on a lower amount. We have got grey book operational roles, which are grey, and green book specialised staff, which are green on there. So everyone that is grey on there does work in the prevention team, but could also be abstracted for incidents, training and CPD. So we moved from this structure here to this structure here, and we have added new posts as a green book head of function. We've added a partnership manager. We've added a new watch manager to coordinate some of our campaigns, centralised projects, look at evaluation. We've added 2 crew manager roles, which deliver a lot of our training and input to our operational stations, sometimes in the evening or weekends. We've added lead community safety officers, which are a level of leadership and something that now, as you can see from this new evolved structure, there is a route of progression, career progression for both operation and non-operational staff, which didn't exist before. I will also mention that we've got a temporary post as road safety coordinator, and we adapted a couple of roles, a safeguarding officer to a safeguarding manager position, and a youth engagement officer to a youth and schools manager. These are operating at a higher level and offering us a different level of skills and managerial structure to our prevention strategy. So with all that, that's taken a good chunk of our last 12 months. We have had to look at our training. So we've first of all made sure our structure's right, our role profiles are right. We've done extensive recruitment selection. We've got the right people. We also now need to look at the right training. So it's not just our prevention team, but once we've got the right people in with the right training, we can then start to upskill and train the rest of our service. Something that was mentioned before was that we've successfully given input and training to our recent Hull-time recruit courses, both the on-call to Hull-time and the full Hull-time firefighter course. This has generated for us quite a lot of work, but has mapped out a 2-year training cycle for our specialised prevention staff so that they can deliver the interventions to the right places with the right level of skills and advice. Just a little bit on our people. It'd be remiss of me not to mention the people that deliver this work across the county. Some people in the pictures have moved on to different roles, but there's some really great people that work in the prevention team. Very proud of it, so it's a pleasure of mine to be able to share with you today some of the prevention team that are around for these pictures. But with that team, it does mean that we have to look after each other. I've mentioned around emotional trauma, but we do recognise that it's very difficult sometimes that when we work in isolated areas, we do have to make sure that our level of supervision and welfare support is there for the times that they're at work, but also the times where they need to work slightly elongated hours to travel and visit the far corners of our service. We are working on a new welfare strategy with our team to further develop this, make sure that supervision and contact is in place, make sure that every day is finished and there are no issues. Any sort of slight issues that are picked up, whether that's welfare, are dealt with very quickly. We do operate a bi-weekly team meeting. This is predominantly to discuss casework, workloads, and discuss any issues and look for best practice across any interventions that we carry out. We also operate weekly updates, regular welfare checks, and roughly every sort of 6 to 8 weeks, we get together as a team to carry out training, CPD, and carry out creative sessions, problem solving, and do workshops on core code of ethics. I'd like to move on to the next bit, which is about our successes and also some of our challenges and where we're going next. So what's working well? So we started a new and ongoing plan to ensure all our operational crews have the confidence and competence to undertake all levels of home fire safety visits. So to do this, we've offered additional training. We've been out to every watch recently, giving them additional training on computer systems, making sure that they are fully understanding how to manage cases that are coming in, and that the level of recording and sort of accountability is there for all stations and areas as well. We are quite proud of the fact that we're now fully embedded with our post-incident engagement policy, and we've trained every whole time and shift station to ensure that this is something that we carry out at every opportunity. This is basically whether it's a pan fire or an automatic fire alarm, or even if it's to support other agencies such as the ambulance service to gain entry for a medical emergency. We are following this up with post-incident engagement and offering interventions to those that have had it on potentially the worst day of their life. We have started to re-educate our internal staff around our prevention priorities. So where a few years ago our prevention priorities were quite wide, we've really honed it down now into specific targeted interventions with those that need it, and really made sure that we are focused on delivering that strategy, not just from a prevention point of view, but from a service point of view. I mentioned about the inputs to new firefighter training cohorts, but one of the things that we're very proud of is that we've managed to prioritise vulnerability, and we use data to target our resources. So we use a national risk methodology for categorising very high, medium and low, and we use that to prioritise when and where we will get to them referrals, and we manage that weekly. We check it bi-weekly, and then on a monthly basis we do have a community risk and resilience meeting which provides the accountability to the service. We've spent a lot of time, some of this work's come from our partnership manager Laura Hodgson, who has been identifying and working with different partner organisations, whether that's from local authority to charitable sector, trying to make sure that they're aware of our service and our interventions so that they can refer people who they deem to be vulnerable as well. That work is always ongoing, but that work's really just started since around sort of May this year, with the introduction of our new partnership manager, carrying on from some of the work which has previously been completed by the rest of the team. And then mentioned previously by Tom, but we do have the NFCC Safe Links referral pathway. So this is an app available on smartphones that we've put on every North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service frontline phone, but also happily to sort of admit that we've got it onto North Yorkshire Police mobile devices and Yorkshire Ambulance Service frontline devices, which Yorkshire Ambulance Service, they cover a wider area than North Yorkshire Fire and Police, but the app itself is a national app and it's based on postcodes. So if you had a postcode for anywhere in the country, the referral will go through to that postcode's fire and rescue service. So what else have we done? We have, through the new structure, made it so that we can achieve career progression. There is something for everyone now. So previously, we would have a lot of people come into the role and unable to really move anywhere within prevention. If they wanted progression, they would have to leave the service or leave the department. There is now space for a route up right from community safety officer to head of function. With that increased team, we have had to secure and sustain a new infrastructure. So it's getting the people, the right role profiles, getting the vehicles, the equipment, and two new office spaces which we can use as hubs or as storage locations for equipment. We have a new governance structure in the Community Risk and Resilience meeting. This is chaired by Tom Hurst. This is a sort of in-depth deep dive into the performance of jobs completed and jobs that we still have to be carrying out. And some of the graphics on the right-hand side here are from the data dashboards from that meeting. I do want to just mention the very small graph in September there. It's because we pulled the data from early on in the month, but we are expecting that by the end of the month that figure will be showing a much fuller picture, and hopefully we can show an increase in not just the different types and quality of home fire safety visits, but the quantity as well. We had better use of data to map out our activities. As I mentioned, not just about how likely that a property is likely to have a fire, but the consequence, so the distance from a fire and rescue service resource. And we are starting to work on a trial of using data to proactively visit people and offer home fire safety visits to the most vulnerable in our county. We are and have completed a trial of a new serious incident review meeting. So this is a way of reviewing a serious incident, but looking at prevention and protection learning opportunities. So the operational side is dealt with via the debrief process, but we're looking at prevention, protection, safeguarding learning opportunities for that. And we are also very proud to say that we are now quality assuring and evaluating our home fire safety visits. So both the quality assurance of our crews and our team and the evaluation from the public is helping us to learn about where areas we can improve and also what we're doing well as well to celebrate our successes. This slide here, there is a nice picture here. This is some of the team after one of our team days out as we started to bond our new team together. But just a few more things that I think are working well. We are, through our new Youth and Schools Engagement Manager, Keely Smith, and Hannah Oakley, our Safeguarding Manager, developing new approaches to working with young people. Our juvenile fire setter intervention called Fire Safe is running, and we are developing and improving that as we can. We've done a lot with partners, and we continue to do a lot with partners and training them. And we've done a lot in the road safety partnership. Helen Oldroyd, who's our road safety coordinator, alongside Vicky, have been doing a lot of work ensuring that our partnership activity is coordinated across all the partners of that partnership, but across North Yorkshire and City of York. We've actually managed to transition the public safety service from a trial phase into business as usual. So we've been looking to substantiate a further 2 officers in them posts, sort of towards the end of this year and into next year. And then we have continued to chair multiple multi-agency prevention and early intervention meetings, such as serious violence duty, road safety and seasonal health partnerships. So what challenges have we still got? As we mentioned, the funding models for North Yorkshire don't always support our unique challenges. We do have a vast area and a vast number of people that we need to reach, and some interventions that we need to deliver, very high priority, but do require perhaps one member of staff travelling a full day to get there and back to deliver it. It's not always the most efficient way of working, but it is something that we need to get better with. And we're looking at ways to ensure that if we go into a community, there could be other work that we do there whilst we're in that area. We do have finite resources, both in the prevention team, but also with North Yorkshire. So we have to make sure that we target our effort and activity to those that need it first. And it's very difficult, whilst working with an emergency response in mind, that we have to be effective and make sure that we provide quality engagements to the vulnerable in small and isolated rural locations. We do get on average around 21 million tourists coming into our county every year, so this does pose unique challenges at certain points in the year. We have to adapt to that, and we have to respond to the challenges that brings as well. I've mentioned around our dedicated team working in isolation, but we do have to continually re-educate our staff, making sure that we have prevention and early intervention priorities at its heart. A few things about our future. I think we have got the right people delivering the right interventions, but we've still got work to do on there as our team is very young. We want to maintain and sort of build on finance if it allows, to ensure that we can continue being that specialist compassionate team. But we also want the opportunity to innovate. I think we've got some really creative people within the team and within the service, wider service, that want to do more with prevention. So we want that opportunity to innovate there and bring new ideas, whether that's technological or just something that is really unique to a specific location. We do need to build on a little bit more of a quality of access to make sure our services are available to all communities and all diverse communities within our county. And we do want to improve our approach in the use of data and our approaches to safeguarding. I do want to end it there, but if I could just take one moment to say that that link there is our home fire safety visit, online home fire safety check. So if you do something today that matters, it's protect yourself or someone that you care about, and visit that link and refer or complete online home fire safety check for yourself. Thank you very much.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Adam. And if I could just appeal to the comms people on the call to make sure that we get that link out on our channels as part of anything that we're doing today, as well as, you know, potentially sharing the information about the whole meeting. I think something that people are more likely to access is, like you say, something practical that people can do that doesn't take. How long does it take someone to do one of those?
Yeah, if it can take anywhere between sort of 4 and 15 minutes.
All right, so it's something you can almost do while you're making a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Brilliant. All right, fantastic. I just had a couple of questions on, I don't know whether you've stopped sharing, so I'll try and pick them up. Just in terms of the objective of the structure around improving the use of data, which I'm increasingly familiar with because of I'm more brief than I was just a few weeks ago. But I just wondered whether there was anything you could add. Obviously, that's all about trying to manage probabilities and trying to ensure that we're targeting resources where the risk is the highest. I suppose if you're a member of the public who might be considered low risk, you might want some reassurance around those kind of more improbable scenarios and just kind of those things that are obviously unlikely to happen, but actually they can still happen, and just kind of just to reassure people, I suppose, about the non-data driven stuff, which is just the kind of, you know, I guess it's the general standard of all service beyond the kind of targeting and the data driven work that you're doing. Just anything you can say on that would be really helpful. Shall I tell you all of them and then you can just come back once? Anything on the structure, the changing structure, the staffing structure, anything you can add on just the kind of difference that that's making would be helpful. And then I just wanted to kind of say, you know, I appreciate everything you're saying about the new team and the need for the kind of welfare strategy to look after everyone. You know, I think the thing about important public services, of which you are one, is also that they're all people services, and ultimately we've got to look after those people in those services in order to deliver the service to the public. So I absolutely just wanted to draw attention to that and how important I think it is, just in terms of making sure that people feel appreciated and recognised, and that we do everything we can strategically to make sure that they're looked after, and that they want to continue doing the important work that they're doing. So those were, I think, the only things that I had. If there's anything that you wanted to come back on.
Shall I answer the first one, Tom, and maybe second? Yeah. So just a sort of public reassurance, really, we do still have a wide range of prevention resources available on our website. All our advice for home fire safety is on our website, but we do recognise that even deemed low risk, that something could still happen. So to combat that, we are doing several campaigns. So we look at data, just bring it back to data, but we do look at data of the common reasons and causes of fires. It's something that we do look at as a fire investigation group as well, but through that we are targeting our campaigns at things like kitchen fires, cooking, that we all have in our properties and can all still have a fire with. So we do comms and campaigns around that can hit everyone. So we do that in smaller areas, but we will be doing that across the service as well. We also feed back a lot of data nationally. So if we know about the causation of fire, issues around particular domestic appliances, or even medicines, medical devices and creams, we feed that in at a national level to help feed national campaign and comms and resources that are built by National Fire Chiefs Council and the Home Office.
Great. Yeah, Tom, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I did, yeah. I've just shared our website, Your Safety section as well, which it covers every single aspect, water, road, fire, domestic dwelling. It's got videos on there if people choose to do that about home fire safety visits. Yeah, we do get requests now from other fire and rescue services to borrow our things, which is a sort of a bit of an honour really, that people are seeing us as best practice. So yeah, please feel free if we can to share that with everyone. I think in relation to the structure, it's still in the infancy at the moment. Obviously, with the recruitment and the pre-employment checks, we're already starting to see trajectory in a lot of places where we've certainly around where we managed to bolster the whole time. So where our specialist whole time staff are now going out and educating the crews, we're seeing increases in activities, focused activities as well, and actually a better understanding around carrying out safety activities that are focused towards vulnerability rather than interactions and engagements that we can actually measure, and the introduction of increased referrals and the quality insurance and evaluation is already in place. We've still got, it's really exciting, certainly for myself, who's been part of the team that sort of designed the structure, designed the strategy, to start seeing these things grow, but it's only going to continue in that way. So yeah, we are seeing increases already, but we will start seeing more substantial ones as everybody's fully up and running in all their roles.
Brilliant. And anything you wanted to add on welfare? Yeah,
it's essential. You know, we really are. We're very grateful and appreciative of our staff. We are, as we are moving away from what one sees lots of interactions and engagements with the public, which, you know, if there's still capacity within our working day, we will try, but we do need to make sure we do focus on the most vulnerable. As we do focus on the most vulnerable, that does increase, you know, the emotional effects on our workforce. You know, it isn't easy to try and put in every provision possible to make that person safer, put in all the referral pathways, do all you can, but then eventually walk away. That is a very difficult thing to do for a caring member of our staff. So yeah, it's essential that we do have all the welfare. Thankfully, we do have some good welfare provisions, and the team are absolutely fantastic at getting together, you know, looking at innovative ways of working together, but also looking out for each of one of other. So yeah, it really is an important part of our role and our duty to our staff.
JD, did you want to add anything?
Just about how much of a strategic commitment welfare in the workplace is, Joe, Deputy Mayor, because ultimately we want brilliant people doing brilliant things. They're only brilliant when they have the environment and the, you know, the opportunity to do so. We haven't always got it right in the past, you know, and the new leadership team is taking that forward. We're investing as much as we physically can within this space, and we'll continue to do so. But ultimately, our commitment is absolute to our staff, to our partners and everybody else. When you work with North Yorkshire, we are genuinely working to give you the best product at all times, and that includes the public. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. If you support the staff, the public will get an even better service, won't they? So I think that comes across very clearly. That was all from me. Did anyone else have any other questions on that presentation or things they wanted to add before we move on to the protection presentation? I think we can move on, which I think is Tom, it's you again, but with John Darnton, I think this time.
It is, yeah, Deputy Mayor, once again. I can't take, I have supported a little bit with the presentation, but yeah, I can't be taking credit. This is 90% John's work, and he will be delivering the presentation, but happy for any questions that I might be able to support with.
Brilliant, thank you. And John, same thing applies really. If you wanted to run through the presentation, I won't interrupt you. You don't need to read everything on every slide, and I will just come back at the end with any questions or comments that I've got, but the floor is yours.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can everybody see the presentation and hear me all right?
Yes, lovely, thank you.
Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm John Darnton, currently a group manager. I've moved into the response arm of the service, but I've spent the last 4 years working in the protection team alongside Tom. There's a lot of similarities between this presentation and the prevention one, so I'll try and flick over some of these areas pretty quickly, but this presentation is going to focus on the structure, the strategy and plan, covering some detail around our areas for improvement from the last NYFRS inspection, our achievements and some of our challenges. So different to the presentation on the prevention, protection focuses its staff at working towards protect businesses and buildings and their users. We provide support and guidance, and where appropriate, enforcement activity to ensure fire safety standards within those buildings are met. I think it's important, following the release of the Grenfell Phase 2 report, to also mention that we do carry out this activity in the communal areas of flats where there are 2 or more dwellings. And that's been a key focus over the last few years. So again, what are the local drivers? it's exactly the same ones that we've spoke about through the prevention. So I won't go into too much detail, but the strategy that comes out of the other end, it protects the built environment. How can we, and what are we going to do to keep our built environment safe within the City of York and North Yorkshire? So I'm just going to focus in on the RRM, or the risk and resource model, and what the findings of the risk and resource model were that related to protection. We said we will, or you said you wanted to create new roles that would allow staff to specialise earlier on in their career and increase capacity and capability by making permanent roles currently funded by government grants. Create career progression pathways for all people within the department, whether that's in an operational capacity or a non-operational role. Work with our regional fire and rescue services to further collaborate and share resources specifically across fire engineering, training and enforcement, and align to emerging new legislative requirements and national frameworks. Now that has been very challenging over the last few years on the introduction of lots of new legislation following the findings of the Grenfell Tower inquiry. We've had 3 new lots of legislation that we've had to implement, teach and assure that we can deliver those as part of our regulatory activity. So our strategy takes from the risk and resource model. Why do we have it? Very similar. It's us being able to demonstrate that we are focusing our efforts on protecting those people and those buildings that create the biggest or pose the biggest risk. We've shifted our focus a little bit from the building, just focusing on the building, and actually now it's where the consequence of having a fire within that building poses the biggest risk. So where there are multiple people in those buildings and not just the building itself. What does the strategy say? How are we going to deliver it? How we monitor and understand our performance, and how we understand the difference it makes. And I'll go into a bit further detail as we continue through the presentation. So there's a lot of things on that slide, but the national guidance, the fire and rescue national framework states we must identify and assess, make provision, work in partnership and be accountable. They're the headlines that we must ensure that we are demonstrating through our protection activities. We have the core code of ethics, all the different legislations, some that filters down to strategies, community risk profile, risk-based inspection programme, and then the deliverables on the outside, what we do on a day-to-day basis to ensure that we can fulfil our legislative requirements for carrying out the fire safety order. So this is the action plan. This is the last page within our strategy, and I'll repeat what Adam says about the prevention one. They are documents that can be found on the North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service website, and they do highlight some of those key areas of which we have focused historically, but also what we are focusing on moving forward. I won't go into too much detail about the different ones. They are available on the website should you wish for further information. So some of the key deliverables. These are the things that we have focused significantly on over the last few years and continue to do so to ensure that we can demonstrate against those indicators of good for the NYFRS inspection. So our risk-based inspection programme will target those buildings or those premises that present the greatest risk to our communities. That's not to say we forget about everybody else. We ensure that there is the provision there to dip sample and inspect those buildings where the threat of fire is lesser, but we can do that by having different staff members do it. We want to focus our highest trained staff on those buildings that pose the highest risk. So we have introduced some key performance indicators against our risk-based inspection programme to measure our performance. We are utilising new and innovative data sources and information to deliver the protection strategy with increased efficiency and effectiveness, and we'll go on to discuss some of those in a short while. And one of the key benefits is that we've managed to introduce career pathways for all protection staff. We have what we call Green Book staff or non-operational staff who were able to come out at what we call advisor level, but we've got a career pathway, which I think we'll be able to show on the next slide. Again, I've copied and tried to keep it uniformed with the prevention one, so I did pinch a little bit of how they'd done theirs, but I thought it was a real good way of demonstrating some of the new positions. So the gold stars demonstrate some of those new positions which we've introduced, and as you can see, where fire safety advisors would usually be at this level, there is now options for them to go into training, to be an inspector, and hopefully we can keep progressing that further as we continue our development of the protection team. So I'm going to move swiftly on to now the areas for improvement as highlighted in the last NYFRS inspection, and these related to the protection team. So you'll see a trend here around our action plan and our strategy of focusing our activities on the buildings where there is a higher risk. So we assure ourselves that its risk-based inspection programme prioritises the highest risks and includes proportionate activity. We align to the National Fire Chiefs Council competency framework for fire safety regulators. That details the qualification requirements for each level within the team. So that goes from what we call an advisor, an inspector, or specialist staff and non-specialist staff. So it's quite important that at each level of qualification, you can inspect a certain level of building. So the higher level of training, the more complex building you can inspect. The service should make sure it has an effective quality assurance process and that staff carry out audits to an appropriate standard. That is something we have always had that. But I think it was carried out a bit in silos across the different areas of service, and what we've done is combine our efforts, amalgamated that into one clear, consistent strategy for carrying out our quality assurance work. And the service should make sure it has effective arrangements to giving specialist protection advice out of hours. And we'll go into each one now. So the service should assure itself that its risk-based inspection programme priorities the highest risks and includes proportionate activity to reduce risk. So we work to what we call the Fire Service Emergency Cover Model and Integrated Risk Management Guidance Note 4 methodology as our baseline for risk determination. I won't go into too many details, they're long drawn out documents, but they're the two that we use. And it includes methodology to allocate a generic risk score and 5 category levels between very high and very low to occupancy categories. This generic risk score is refined further following physical inspection. So this is what we look at currently. So the building size in terms of floor space, the building height, what that building is used for, and each building is then categorised in as home office category. So care homes, for example, or hospitals will score higher due to the use of those. And then what we do is cross-reference that with historic incident data to give us a generic risk level for each individual building within our management information system and prioritise those buildings to ensure that those that pose the greatest risk get the correct people carrying out this inspection. I think this is a really good graphic just to show you some of that work, certainly around the highest risks. So following the inspection, there was a fantastic team of people, and credit to all of them who have been involved in this and continue to carry out this work to ensure that we understand the risk within our communities. So as of January 2022, North Yorkshire and the City of York, within our management information system, had 511 very high-risk buildings. 398 of those were overdue inspection. High-risk buildings, we had 912 and 530 of those were overdue. And as of March 24 this year, you can see the number is significantly less. We have 6 very high-risk buildings, all within inspection frequencies, and 360 high-risk buildings, all within inspection frequencies. And I think that demonstrates the absolute commitment from our protection teams to get out and carry out that work to ensure that we have prioritised those buildings that have the highest risk. Another arm of activity which is a real win for us recently, and I think it was Damien mentioning the DAP packs that have recently been issued, and this one in particular with regards to the consultation activity carried out by protection teams. So building regulations, this is where we respond to requests to from building control around those premises. It might be a new build, or it might be some alterations work to a particular building, and we consult to ensure that the building aligns to the approved document and the approved building standards. And equally, those buildings that want to apply for licensing meet the required standard in regards to public safety. So I think you can see from there for the last year, so for 23-24, we responded to 99.9% of our building regulations within timeframes and 100% of our licensing consultations within timeframes. So again, real credit to those teams for making sure that we've done that, and you can see there where we are nationally in comparison to others. So the service should align with the National Fire Chiefs Consulting Framework for fire safety regulators. So to ensure that we have done this and align into it, station managers take responsibility for the allocation of all our fire safety activity across the county. And we have put in additional controls in place to monitor high and very high risk jobs that have been completed. I think we're moving on to 18 months now since the last time that we had somebody who wasn't trained to the appropriate level that checked a very high or high risk building. But even if that does happen, we can assure ourselves that there'll be a quality assurance check against it, and that somebody with the correct qualification will double check that that's been done correctly. On to quality assurance. It does say that no quality assurance process was in place. We did do some quality assurance, but I think it was very much siloed and not agreed across the different corners of the county. So we introduced in September 2022 our new process. This aligns to the National Fire Chiefs Council Competency Framework and is a blended approach to both desktop assurance and full assurance processes, which will actually be a physical visit with the inspecting officer. We've got a new recording system where we can identify trends, both of areas of good practice or for areas that require some shared learning. And the process is supplemented by support from the protection training team to deliver training where common areas of development are identified. And I think that's the training team has been a real win for us, that we've got that dedicated department now that can focus their efforts solely on protection and fire safety training in the built environment. So an update on where we are. So as of November 22, 37% of our staff had been quality assured. 68% of staff in auditing roles had been quality assured. And then in 2023, we had a large number of people who's embarked on gaining the relevant fire safety qualifications for their level. That was following a promotion process. And 1 year later, we can show and demonstrate and assure ourselves that 100% of staff in auditing roles had received the appropriate quality assurance. What we have now is people getting signed off and gaining those qualifications and drip feeding into the system, and we're able to pick them out and quality assure them prior to any regulatory activity. It's a real success story for us, and thanks to those people that have been involved in that process. So out of hours protection advice, the last one of our areas for improvement, we now have a Strategic Leadership Board approved a trial for a new out of hours enforcement in May 2024. It's currently in development between ourselves and rep bodies to ensure that it is ready for those individuals who have been identified to be able to go out and trial that. We have recruited the additional inspectors already to enable us to carry out that function. And we've also got the vehicles in place. So once we have the sign off, we'll be able to hit the go button and get that out and working as quickly as possible. There's a lot of information on here, so I'll just quickly talk through some of them. We've done a lot of work with our primary authority scheme. This is where we work in partnership with businesses who have lots of premises throughout the country, and we can act as that single point of contact, so they don't have to deal with lots of different regulatory bodies or fire services. They come to us and we offer that support. We're doing lots of work to reduce the number of unwanted fire signals at commercial industrial premises. There's been a huge investment into our management information system, and we have a watch manager in position who's carrying out that work and doing a brilliant job in what is a difficult area, and she's really taken to it and works hard every day to try and understand it and ensure that we get the best management information system we can. This will ensure that we are GDPR compliant, we'll be able to better use our data, we'll have better map of functionality, we'll have the end user will have a much better improved experience, much more simplified from the one we have now, improved data quality, and automated links to other key fire and rescue service systems, such as in our control room, which will be able to share those buildings where there is potential issues with our operational crews at point of mobilisation. We have a regional protection group that identifies and shares good practice in key areas such as fire engineering, training and enforcement. We have recently seconded one of our inspectors to the building safety regulator for the county and our region, and they focus on high-rise residential buildings. So we have a direct link to the building safety regulator through one of our existing staff. And we've invested in some virtual reality, which means that we can film videos of buildings and take those to the end user. We don't have to all go to that building. We could carry out lots of great training in using this virtual reality technology. I think to carry on from what Adam said about ensuring that our activities are accessible from everybody across North Yorkshire, we are introducing the new fire safety check, or the level 2 award. This is an accredited award that we are able to deliver as part of the on-call transition, as part of the last hold time recruits course, and we will be delivering our first course to the on-call in October, which will mean that for the first time we now have, or we'll be able to provide a provision of fire safety activity in some of our most outlying areas, something we've never been able to do before without using our whole-time colleagues. So it's a real investment and a real opportunity for our on-call team and managers to get out there and be able to give some fire safety advice. This will contribute to our risk-based intervention programme, ensure staff at all levels have access to fire safety qualification and in those hard-to-reach areas. So what are the challenges? So one of the challenges is the NFCC will shortly be releasing a risk-based interventions guidance. So when I spoke earlier about the fire services emergency cover and the guidance note 4, this will be a new standardised national risk methodology, which we will then have to ensure that we are demonstrating. The uncertainty around some of the funding that protection teams have had recently, which will cause us difficulties to develop a sustainable plan. Succession planning, due to the time and cost of specialist staff gaining appropriate qualifications and competencies, it can take up to 2 to 3 years to get to the highest level, which does cause issues certainly if members of staff leave. There are still challenges around the number of regulation and legislation changes that we've had to introduce over the last 3 years. And there are challenges around some of the emerging technologies. And what I mean by that is places like battery energy storage system sites that we are seeing introduced across the county, where the technology is moving quicker than the legislation and regulations behind them, which limits the input that we can have on those. So we are not a statutory consultee. However, our communities believe there to be a big fire risk, and unfortunately we don't have that statutory obligation to be consulted on at the early stages. So how do we measure our performance and evaluation? So accompanying our strategy, we have performance framework, and as Adam has said, this is monitored through the monthly Community Risk and Resilience Performance Group and helps us to understand and evidence the impact that we are having. So we have a capabilities team now who are chasing up and ringing people to ensure that we've carried out our duties in a professional manner. So getting input from those who have had a fire safety inspection, for example, to tell us about their experiences of our service. Our assessments of compliance with national standards for protection, such as the Fire Standards Board, an assessment of our delivery of the fire and rescue plan, internal form and systems governance structures, HMI reports, and changes to our community risk profile. Thank you.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank you so much, John. And I will I've got a couple of questions, and then if anyone else has anything, just give me an indication that you want to come in. I just had a question. I think it was the third slide, just around, you talked about appropriate enforcement activity. I just wondered if you could set out what would have happened before that point. So before you get to a point of enforcement, presumably there's a number of other engagements that you'd have had. So just if you could just talk me through that a little bit. And then a bit later on, when you did your high risk, very high risk inspection program slide, I just wondered, presumably the number of very high risk and high risk buildings and properties, whatever the category was, there must be some that there's no matter what you do, they're going to remain high risk or very high risk. I just wondered if there was anything you could say about the measures that you've obviously put in place to reduce something from being very high risk to not being any more. So what kinds of things might have happened there? And then on just at the end there, when you were talking about the challenge around the changes in regulation and legislation, and it may be something that can be picked up by whoever's presenting on the Grenfell inquiry in the spotlight section that's following this one, but it was just really you know, the challenges that's posing to the service around training and consistency of training across the force, just to ensure that everyone, you know, gets to a kind of similar point when things are moving quickly. And then just an action that I thought maybe either Amanda or Fiona can pick up, I'm not sure who's the most appropriate person to do it, around the emerging technologies and consultation. I just wondered whether we could make an informal approach to the two planning authorities, City of York and North Yorkshire, just to make a request of them that they try and involve us at an early point if we think there might be something where we could either provide reassurance or an assessment. I don't know whether that's something that's happened previously or whether that's something we can take away. But those were my kind of questions and comments on that. I don't know whether you want to come back, and then if anyone else has got anything, they can come in after.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll start with the enforcement activity. In the majority of cases, absolutely, it's usually that we've been a number of times and provided that support and guidance, but the remediation works have just not happened. So that would be the informal side of it. That in enforcement is then like a formal notice, which is they have to then comply with. If they don't do that, they're breaking the law, and we are then we are able to enforce. There are occasions where the risk is so great, though, that we will issue an enforcement notice at the point of first contact. So,
right,
although the majority of times it is a lengthy time, it can be that one visit, actually the risk is deemed too great, you are going to receive an enforcement notice.
Yeah.
So that's that question. The high risk and very high risk buildings is an ongoing project and something that we are very aware that we are altering and on a bit of a trajectory towards the new risk-based interventions guidance. And we'll absolutely lock down those buildings where there will always be that risk, where the consequences mainly of having a fire are deemed the greatest. So inspections will be carried out at care homes, hospitals, as I mentioned earlier, because we know that no matter what activity, the residual risk left within those buildings requires that we should carry out inspections on a more frequent basis. The reason that we've managed to reduce the numbers down from that you saw with that shown on one of the slides is through a big data cleansing project and quality assurance program, where people have been put in the wrong size. So it's just a small shop, but unfortunately they've ticked that it's 20,000 square meters, and then it just bumps it up the scoring record. So it was a huge cleansing project, which is what we've managed to do. We've got it down to those buildings, and then we've been out and inspected them just to make sure.
Great. And can I just on that high risk buildings, and just some of those wider prevention measures, I guess, that we talked about in the previous presentation. I just wondered what overlap you had around some of that, either public safety on prevention work or with wider services like the local authorities, when you've got maybe, for example, in a care home, you might have a care home where people are still able to smoke inside their premises. Obviously, that increases the fire risk. And I don't know whether, again, just sometimes there'll be work going on around smoking cessation or those kind of projects that the council might be doing or the NHS might be doing, but how you interact with those other services to kind of join together on some of that work, whether it's prevention or the protection side, just to ensure that residents are both aware of the risk, but also aware of maybe what support might be available to help them to either stop or to start smoking outside and not inside, or all those things that can reduce their risk. That was just a follow up on that one.
Yeah, so I can certainly speak from the protection side. We have great links with the CQC, who look after care homes. We have great links with planning authorities and local authorities, and have an established system where it's called a matter of evident concern, which we exchange with each other, and that will be them informing us of something like smoking, or us informing them of something that would be more relatable to those sections. So yeah, certainly within protection we have those clear links because we work together so regularly, and it works really well. The prevention side may be better for Adam or Tom just to answer that one.
Does anyone want to jump in?
You want me to come in, Tom?
Either or, I can, yeah, I'll let you, Adam, if you want, that's fine.
I was just going to mention that we in prevention, we do work closely with protection. So the recognised high risk residential buildings that we've recently just undergone inspections with, we go out as a prevention team and go into them buildings and offer our services and interventions to the people that live within them. And then we've got close links with other services that you mentioned, such as like Smoke Free and other referral partners. So if we identify something, we'll work with them people and them occupants to try and make them safer and ultimately make the building safer as well.
Yeah, great. And certainly that again feels like it's potentially an opportunity from the combined authority with the two local authorities perhaps working more closely alongside policing and fire, that those opportunities to kind of overlap and just coordinate the way in which people are supported in the community can be better developed. And I know that's something that fire's done a lot of work on already in kind of those kind of services. Did anyone want to come back on, what was the other thing? Training and consultation and contacting the local authorities. Fiona?
Yeah, just on the contacting local authorities, I think we can probably work together with the protection team and send a joint letter to encourage engagement from yourself and protection. So I'll coordinate that.
And probably let's involve the mayor in that as well.
Yeah.
And sorry, and yeah, I don't want to steal John's thunder because he's certainly around the battery energy sites. Him and one of our colleagues called Sam has done an amazing amount of work with them. We've already reached out to all the planners, and although it's not our statutory duty, we are trying to be involved at that very, very early stage. We use the NFCC guidance around those sites. It's just gone out for further consultation, as John covered earlier in his presentation. The technologies are flying, and we're trying to keep up with the statutory guidance and procedures. But John, I'll let you just cover it quickly if you don't mind. But yeah, you have been working with the planners, haven't you?
Yeah, we approached both planning authorities with a letter. It did see we have got a definite increase in the number of people now coming towards us pre-planning consultation, so we're able to have our input, and we are getting a lot more interaction with the actual developers of these sites. So we've got an early input at all stages of the development now, but it's not in every case.
No, and I would imagine also that the fire safe technology in this area is also something that's going to move quite quickly, as there is more of it out there. The technology to keep it safe will also presumably also move quickly. But no, that's really helpful. Does anyone else want to come in on anything else before we move on? No? Great. In which case, thank you, Adam and John, substantively, and then Tom as well, for all those presentations. That's been really useful from my point of view, and really important work that everyone is doing. So thank you for that. We will move on to the next item, which is the spotlight question, which is around the Grenfell inquiry report, which is around the recommendations that have gone to the Fire Chief, National Fire Chiefs Council and Fire and Rescue Services. So just for I think it's going to be quite a brief report back on how that is being responded to locally. Who is it? JD, are you doing this bit?
Yeah, I'll take that. Thank you.
Thank you,
Deputy Mayor. I think it's right that we acknowledge the significant work between communities and the Fire and Rescue Service on this, and what was, 72 people being a tragic night and a tragic event. And it's something that, of course, all of us will remember for a significant period of time. So our thoughts are still with those people involved. It's right now that when Matt spoke around earlier about us being a learning organisation, it's right that that isn't just something that we say, it's something we clearly demonstrate, and our results there have shown that. However, it isn't just about learning, it's about the culture that we're creating for us to be a learning environment, a learning organisation, and there being a culture of learning within the organisation where people acknowledge when we've done something wrong and we learn quickly. That's what this is about. And the Grenfell findings will only strengthen that across the UK Fire and Rescue Service. Now, there are 11 recommendations which are directed at Fire and Rescue Services, including the National Fire Chiefs Council. As a council, there are work streams being set up through internal groups where individuals will lead on those findings. And there is an assurance and governance which goes right into central government, into the ministerial boards, where individual chiefs responsible for areas of work will report into those ministerial assurances. So the entire governance is already in place, and we are part of that governance, Deputy Mayor. Now, in service, one of the recommendations is that we review everything from phase one, which is what we're doing, and we've been underway with that for some time. It's right that we acknowledge that this was over 7.5 years ago, so we have to make sure what we've done is still reliable and credible to make sure we're still delivering for the public. Now, of the other 11 areas, these are being dealt with under predominantly Damien's assurance framework for the organisation, with individual and specialist senior responsible owners on there. That tracker we have to report regionally and nationally into that ministerial board, so the public can be assured what we're doing is receiving the attention it needs, and also the governance to make sure we're making that progress. A couple of key points on there. apart from the phase 1 review, one area we have already completed ahead of the time was on full rollout of digital radios across the organisation, which we've done. And 2 very pertinent points is around the extent to which our control is integrated into the service. Now, we wholeheartedly believe as an organisation that our control are at the heart of everything we do. They are the first port of contact for anybody in need who contacts the service. They're extremely professional and they are truly at the heart of what we do. And we've worked hard for them to see that and to feel part of our organisation, not just emotionally and physically in what we're doing, but in the processes and how we work with control. And that's something we continue to develop. And the other side of this is in leadership and incident command training. Now, we have a framework which is externally assessed by a third-party organisation, which gives the public assurance that all of our commanders who turn up are competent in what they do. They've been assessed and they're at the forefront of the current knowledge and skills and understanding of incident command in the sector. So the public assurance is there, our competence is increasing all the time and that assurance across the sector, but also working internally to make sure that we constantly review, we constantly challenge what we're doing and delivering against the Grenfell outcomes. Where I'm sure in the future we will bring a public meeting around Grenfell when it's appropriate. But at this time, as I'm sure you'll understand, it's an enormous document, and rightly so. We're working our way through there to understand the wider impacts and to make sure that we don't leave a stone unturned in relation to this for the public and also for the service to make sure we respond appropriately. And I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, JD. My only, it's not really a question, although it can be, is I think one of the other kind of lessons of Grenfell beyond the kind of operational changes and kind of recommendations is I suppose it's around how people at senior levels respond to alerts of concern. So obviously you'll have internal processes for staff to use. I suppose I just wanted to kind of mention that obviously the public or anyone really can contact elected representatives, whether they're local councillors. They can certainly contact me as the Deputy Mayor for Police, Fire and Crime, or David Scaife, the Mayor for York and North Yorkshire, if they've got particular concerns that they might not want to raise formally, or they're not sure whether something is a risk or not. And certainly if they're worried that there is a risk and they're not being listened to, that's kind of what we are here for as the kind of democratically accountable representatives locally. So I just wanted to ensure that people knew that there are ways of doing that, whether that's questions in a forum like this, which is a public meeting, or I did private surgery appointments yesterday, and there's also correspondence channels where people can just email in and raise any questions or issues that they might have. So I guess as much as the kind of very kind of tactical and operational things that I know that the Fire and Rescue Service are doing, there is also a kind of wider reassurance that people should be able to feel that if they have any concerns, there are places they can raise those concerns, and then it's our job to ensure that we then raise those appropriately with you and the fire service. So thank you for the update. Did anyone else want to come in on that before we move forward? Can't see any hands, but I can't actually see all the people's. I'm assuming it would come up if anyone wanted to come in. Great, thank you. In which case, we're moving on to the update on the NYFRS inspection update. Is that who is doing this one? Damien, is that right?
It is Deputy Mayor, apologies.
Brilliant. You've shared your screen, so I assume it's you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Apologies.
It's okay. We're running slightly late, but that's probably my fault for the performance update questions. So if you want to crack on, and I'll, I think, let me just check. I think I can do this, yes. If you want to do the whole presentation, and then if I've got questions, I'll just jump in at the end.
Certainly, Deputy Mayor. What I propose on doing, Deputy Mayor, the first slides break down the recommendations for the causes of concern that NYFRS gave us in our previous inspection. They're available there for the public. Given our improvement journey, I would like to move on, if I can, to our matrix.
Of course you can, yeah.
Yeah, and I can, we've lived and breathed them, so I can give you all that information from this matrix slide. So these were our 2 causes of concern from HMICFRS. Following a revisit last year, HMICFRS closed both of our causes of concern, which as a service we were incredibly proud of. Other services across England have had causes of concern for a considerable amount of time. But what we wanted to ensure is that we were fully assured that we had moved beyond what HMICFRS have asked us to do, and that we were in a position that we wanted to state that all of the actions are complete. So as you can see there are a number of areas that are still green. The blue areas have all been completed. So that first area of green, that relates to a review of our enabling services. That is looking to be completed at the end of October, and we've got no concerns that won't be completed prior to our next inspection, which will be in January of 2025. The other areas surrounding recommendation and recommendation 2 for 3.2, they're around absence management, and we have introduced a new absence management policy, and those will be looking to be completed again within October. So at our next online public meeting, you will see that those have been completed as well. Recommendation 3, those areas in there, those relate to working time directive. Those will be complete. They're actually complete already. We just need to take those to the next HMI CFRS specific meeting, but all areas around working time directive we have completed. We run a report quarterly at our workforce planning board where we look at the previous 17 weeks to ensure that all members of our staff are compliant with working time directive. Our strategic workforce plan now indicates what we do to ensure that we are compliant with working time directives. So prior to our new inspection in January, all areas that were highlighted within the causes of concern will be complete, albeit HMI said they remove the causes of concern. We wanted to ensure that we'd done everything we can in preparation for that next visit. With regards to areas for improvement, as you can see, a number of these are proposed to close. I do know that the head of assurance and our inspection lead have met with senior responsible owners who take responsibility for each of the questions within the HMICFRS report. I am proposing that a lot more of these areas for improvement will be closed. All of them will be closed prior to inspection, but certainly I met with the inspection lead last week. My question is 1.1 and there's an area for improvement there. All work has been done that is around ensuring that our understanding of risk is informed by comprehensive use of data. We have gathered all of the evidence, all of the work that we've done to be able to demonstrate to HMICFRS when they come back in January why that's been completed, and all other senior responsible owners will be meeting with the head of assurance and inspection lead to demonstrate how all the other areas for improvement have been closed as well. With regards to this one, so this the handling of misconduct report, which was a thematic inspection undertaken by HMICFRS that looked at 10 fire and rescue services, which we weren't one of them, but we did respond to surveys. Following the publication of that report, there was 15 recommendations aimed at fire and rescue services. A number of those recommendations were similar to a previous report that came out surrounding culture and values within English fire and rescue services. A number of these we have progressed already. As you can see there, recommendation 12 needed to be done with immediate effect. That is a very similar recommendation to what came out in culture and values. I'm the senior responsible owner for that recommendation. That will be also going to the HMICFRS specific meeting, because all of the actions relating to that recommendation have already been completed in service. So our approach, given the causes of concern and our areas for improvement, does allow us some agility when these new recommendations come in. We've already gathered lots of evidence that we can use to show that we have completed the actions in other areas. That's not the same across all fire and rescue services. Within the State of Fire and Rescue report, it said that a number of fire and rescue services had yet to complete a high number of the culture and values recommendations. With regards to our timeline, this is our timeline of activity up to, as you can see there, the 6th of January. That's when our inspection, the next inspection starts with our strategic briefing. But we've mapped out lots of activity that we need to do, including developing our strategic brief, our document return and data submission to HMICFRS in advance of the inspection. And also we have launched a number of forums, as you can see in the top right hand corner. These are forums that look across the 11 questions of HMICFRS. They're a recorded session with the senior responsible owner where we can talk around what activity, what evidence we have gathered to make the improvements. As John and Adam have suggested, lots of activity have gone on. We have looked at our previous report, the characteristics of good that are set out by HMICFRS, and we have mapped that improvement journey, but that's just ensuring everyone in our organisation is aware of all the work that's gone on in the past 18 months to 2 years. We do have an assessment methodology which assures each of the question sets. This is very similar to what we undertake with our internal audit. So where we go from minimal assurance right through to substantial assurance, and we have assessed each of the question sets. I think I can rightly say that people have been cautious when looking at their questions, but I certainly know that within my area, we're certainly feeling like we've moved towards that substantial assurance, which would lead hopefully to a good graded judgment in that area come the inspection time. But all senior responsible owners are looking across that. With regards to the document, this is an area of business that we have been working on for some time. We are trying to consolidate all our documents. I think 18 months ago when we first started looking at this, there was 1,400 documents in the service. We're now consolidating those documents, as you've seen today, by the prevention and protection strategies, trying to streamline the documents we've got, and we prioritising those documents that we will be sending to HMICFRS as part of the document review. We're at 67% completion for that. That was in at the end of August, but huge amounts of work are happening all across the service to make sure that the documents that we have got in each department are in date, are ready for when we need to submit those documents to HMICFRS in November. Just a signpost to HMICFRS publications. Since we produced this, there's another couple of publications. So the reports for Staffordshire and Nottinghamshire have also been uploaded onto the HMICFRS website. We review those documents to see how other services have performed, to get an idea of the areas of focus for HMICFRS and to benchmark our performance with those other services dependent upon the gradings that they got, from inadequate all the way up to outstanding. That completes the HMICFRS update. I know I've whizzed through that, Deputy Mayor, but I am happy to take any questions that you've got.
Brilliant, thank you. Just a couple of things. One was just, can you clarify what are enabling services that you talked about in the slide when you went through the causes for concern?
Certainly. So that is our support services that play a key role for not just North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, but also North Yorkshire Police, provide services to both fire and police on things such as people services, IT, all areas like that, business and analysts. So it's our support services which are collaborated between North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service and North Yorkshire Police.
And then my only other question was the slide on standards of behaviour, and it may be that it's something that interacts with the previous enabling services, but just in terms of culture and values and the kind of issues that were raised by the inspector, just I guess from my point of view, just how important they are in terms of public confidence and just making sure that people have confidence in the people who are, you know, out there as their public servants, kind of responding to incidents and those kind of things, and just really whether there's anything between both the finding around enabling services and that culture and values piece, because those are ultimately often things that sit with those human resources functions and support and challenge, I guess, sometimes when it needs to be there, and just whether there was anything in terms of the interaction between those two things that we should be picking up.
Certainly I will start, but I'm sure others would like to come in, Deputy Mayor. But certainly with regards to the culture and values recommendations, there was 35 recommendations that we've looked at, and we've looked at those across all areas of the business. Huge amounts of work that have come into that. Some of the recommendations are relatively specific, where others are around developing that culture, which we have paid a huge amount of work in. We work very closely with our support services within Enable. We're working with people services a lot of the time, and people services have addressed a number of the recommendations that came in to the culture and values recommendations. I think that's what puts us in such a positive position when this further report came out into misconduct handling. A couple of those, I would suggest 33% of those are already things that had been identified in the culture and values report, and we had returned all of those recommendations to HMICFRS. They did have a follow-up question on one of the recommendations, which we responded to, but since that point, HMICFRS have been content with everything that we've done with regards culture and values. I will pause there because I can see the Chief and Deputy Chief both want to come in on this area.
Yeah.
Thanks.
JD, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, David. I mean, ultimately, the public want to know that when firefighters or any employee of the Fire and Rescue Service turns up, or a member of the public service, that they are both competent operationally and competent professionally and personally in how they're going to deal and interact with the public. I will move to enhanced DBS checks in line with the region as a step towards this in enhancing public confidence and trust in what we've done. Considering the rightly justified current focus on fire services for culture. And then to assure the public as well on this, we are in a collaboration with Huddersfield University, which is a framework for change, which is a third-party view of our organisation, the culture, the behaviours, but it's driven by our staff. The strategic leadership team have had no intervention into this, apart from at the end, we will be responsible for delivering the change. So our staff have given their lived experiences, they've given their voice into there, and they are then developing a framework for change, which is what they want to see in their colleagues and their own behaviour for the service for the future. And that will be a public document when it's finished. That the university is physically in the authority for over 12 months. Which is the longest cultural survey that's been undertaken in the fire and rescue service. So again, we are going that extra mile. We're doing everything we can in this space to assure the public and make sure we're fit for the future, not just operationally, but also culturally and behaviourally as well. Thank you, Matt.
Brilliant, thanks. And did I see another hand?
Yes, sorry.
No. Yeah, sorry,
Deputy
Matt.
Mayor. It was, to be fair, the Chief pretty much covered every single thing that I was going to mention there. But what I will say is that, yeah, it's slightly, yeah, that's not unusual. But I think one of the things, you know, to put it bluntly, we're not putting wet paint everywhere. This is about fundamental culture change, which takes time. And I think the culture of any organisation is shaped by the worst behaviour that we're willing to tolerate, and we're not willing to tolerate any of that behaviour anymore. Yeah. So whilst it is a fairly robust stance, it's one which is appropriate and one which improves our offer, as I've said, throughout to the people of North Yorkshire and York.
Brilliant, thank you. Does anyone else want to come in on the inspection report or the update on the inspection report? Great, thank you. In which case we're running over, so let's just move on to the public question. I don't know whether we're putting it up. We have a question from Peter, who lives in Skipton, which is around the around the second appliance in Skipton and RDS staff, I'm assured is retained duty staff, which I think are officially now the on-call firefighters. JD, were you coming back on that question?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to answer that, and thank you. Peter, thank you for the question. First off, I can categorically assure you that the second appliance has not been removed from Skipton Fire Station. No appliances or assets will be moved from here without public consultation, which of course is driven by the Deputy Mayor on there. So first off, nothing has changed at that station. What we have seen is a change in the staffing profile there. We've had some staff leave for personal and professional reasons, but we've also got a couple of career breaks in there, which are going over 12 months. And we've had 3 firefighters which have accepted temporary contracts from their on-call and primary employment. They've now joined the whole time, i.e. they work for us as their primary employment on a short-term contract, which is usually anywhere between 3 to 12 months. So we have had a reduction of staff there for a number of reasons. A lot of it is positive because of them joining the service on the whole time, but we are working well with the community, and we've had a number of firefighters now interested in joining, so we'll rebalance that shift there. But categorically, the appliance hasn't been moved, and we're doing everything we can, as we've already gone through on this entire phase, to balance that staffing out there. So it is positive in that space. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Tom, you wanted to come in as well?
Yeah, I think just in relation to Peter's question, there could be one of the sort of misinterpretation of that potentially about we did forecast the availability a couple of weeks ago, and unfortunately due to global delays, some of our new appliances are a bit later than planned coming into service. So what we had to do, due to mechanical issues with another one, we had to relocate that around the service just for a temporary period while availability was low at Skipton, but then as soon as availability was around and the repair was made, we moved that back. But just on that note, as of November, we are getting 2 new appliances in per month until we get the full 16 in place month on month. So although disappointed we have had a delay, it is a really exciting time for the services. We do get these 16 new appliances into service.
And I wonder, just in terms of the kind of risk of people misunderstanding some of this stuff, and particularly because the question is on the screen without the clarification written down, whether we can just ensure that when we put whether we can ensure that we put that clarification information either in anything that is, I don't know what's publicly available on the website around that question, but also to ensure that we go back to Peter directly in writing to ensure that he knows and has that reassurance in writing that actually his sense of something being removed without consultation was misconstrued.
No, Deputy
JD?
Mayor, yes, no, absolutely. Of course, we receive these questions through your office onto the OPM. So yes, if there's an opportunity for us to respond to Peter, if we have details of anything, or indeed, yes, if we can start to put a written response on here as well for the communities, we absolutely support that. Thank you. Yeah,
no, definitely. I will leave that to the comms and public engagement officers who are on the call to pick up either directly or via your team. In which case, I think that is the last item on the agenda. So I just wanted to thank in particular Damien, Adam and John and Tom for their presentations, but also to everyone who's contributed to the meeting. We're just about on time this time, so thank you all. And I think the next meeting, Amanda, I'm hoping you can tell me, but or maybe tomorrow, is a police-focused meeting and takes place next month, I think. But if anyone is there that can clarify, that would be great. But it will be published on the website. Thank you everyone for attending. It will also be available to watch back if you want to see how you performed on the channels. Thank you. Oh, Fiona, sorry, carry on.
I was just to say the next online public meeting for fire and rescue will be on the 21st of November.
Brilliant, thank you. So we have got police next time and then fire back in November. Fantastic. Yeah. All right, brilliant. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you.
And
Thanks,
your
everybody.
contributions. Really appreciated. Thank you.